Welcome back, students. This is Module 6.1.3, Vertebrates, and we're looking at superclass Pisces. Previously, we looked at the overall taxonomy of subphylum Vertebrata, and we saw that there were three superclasses. In the last module, we looked at superclass Agnatha that included the class Agnatha. And in this module, we're going to be looking at superclass Pisces, and it contains two classes. If we look right down here at the text at the bottom of the slide, the two classes are named Chondrichthyes and Osteichthyes. Now, when you first see these words, boy, they have a lot of letters, but they actually make sense, and we'll talk about their etymology and try to put them in context for you a little later. Right now, we want to give you the features of this grouping, superclass Pisces. Pisces, as some of you may know from the zodiac, it means fish, and so superclass Pisces is the superclass that contains the more typical fishes, the jawed fishes. And if we look at their features, these animals are all aquatic. They have streamlined bodies and they breathe with gills. They have hinged jaws. They have paired fins. Most have scales. They have a two-chambered heart. And in the superclass includes two classes, class Chondrichthyes, the cartilaginous fishes, and Osteichthyes, the bony fishes. So first let's look at Chondrichthyes. This is a class that includes sharks, rays, and skates. The common name is cartilaginous fishes. That also is the etymology of the name. Chondra means cartilage. Ichthyes means fish. Ichthyology is the study of fishes. These animals are called the cartilaginous fishes because their skeleton is made out of cartilage, not of bone. They have exposed gill slits. So if you look at the side of a shark, you can see multiple slits there. Their scales are somewhat like their teeth. In lab, we will look at some shark jaws, and we'll come back to this feature a little bit later in a slide or two. These animals also have a heterocircle tail in which the top lobe of the tail is larger than the bottom lobe. They have a two-chambered heart. Sharks typically have internal fertilization. Males have enlargements on their pelvic fins that are placed inside the female's vent and used to transfer sperm. Using those pelvic fins as a penis in the male. Sharks are unusual. They have electrical sensors in pits on their snout. If you look at a shark's nose, it'll look like it has enlarged pores. These pores are actually sensory organs that are capable of sensing small electrical chemical impulses, such as you get when you contract muscles. I've actually seen a video clip of a hammerhead shark swimming back and forth over the floor of the ocean, and all of a sudden it just goes down. It looks like it's just biting the substrate, the dirt at the bottom of the ocean, but there's a fish buried right there, and it knew it was there because of those electrical sensing pores on their nose. These pores also cause sharks some trouble with regard to metal. Sharks will sometimes bite on metal and swallow metal objects. Transoceanic cables were attacked by sharks, and so they had to make the coverings shark-proof, kind of interestingly. They also have a very acute chemosensory ability. That is, they can smell just molecules of blood and come from a long ways away. That's why if you're spear fishing, for example, you spear a fish, you're not supposed to put it on a stringer and tie it to your belt. You're supposed to take that fish and go up on the shore and then go back in. It's kind of a pain, but that's the safest thing to do so that the sharks don't track you down. Sharks also have a lateral line on each side of their body, on the sides of their body. They have this canal, and the canal is called the lateral line, and it's a sensory canal. It's kind of like long distance touch. It senses vibrations in the water, and this is why it can be hard to catch a fish with your hands, a small fish or whatever. And these animals lack something called a swim bladder. A swim bladder is what the bony fishes have to help them maintain neutral buoyancy so they float in the water better. These animals have a large oily liver that helps them to float, but a shark will sink if it stops swimming. Let's look at a couple of these features here. I told you that shark scales are like shark teeth. Sometimes they call the shark scales dermal denticles. Dermal means skin, denticles means teeth, and these scales are almost indistinguishable from the embryonic origin of the teeth. And if you've seen shark jaws, they have multiple lines of teeth until they get back really small, and the first teeth look something like these scales. It's kind of interesting. One of the uses of shark skin is to dry it and use it as a sandpaper or as a rasp. And in their lifetime, sharks go through hundreds of teeth, and they're always replacing worn and lost teeth as they regenerate more and more teeth. Now, sharks are very interesting. Of course, what excites the imagination of humans is when sharks can attack them, but there are thousands and thousands of people in the water and thousands of sharks, and sharks are excellent swimmers, and if they wanted to attack people, they could find them and kill them, but that's not their intention. Here's a scary scene, though. Here's a guy in a wetsuit on a surfboard, and of course in that profile, what does he resemble? He resembles a marine mammal or a seal, which is one of the favorite foods of some of the large sharks like the great white shark. And this shows a seal that was bitten by a shark. Just had the flesh shredded right off of it. And many shark bites are exploratory. They're just biting to find out what something is that they don't recognize. Sharks are fairly cautious, and they are top predators, and that means that they're relatively rare compared to other animals and organisms on the food web below them at lower trophic levels. And so sharks have been persecuted. They have been hunted for their fins, for shark fin soup. It can be very lucrative. Fishermen will go out, and it's illegal to just hunt for sharks for that purpose. We're going to leave class Chondrichthyes, and we're going to look at class Osteichthyes now. Both are found in superclass Pisces. So let's take a look. So class Osteichthyes is the second class under superclass Pisces. Of course, so class Osteichthyes, as does class Chondrichthyes, they both have all of the features of superclass Pisces. Now, the common name of class Osteichthyes are the bony fishes, and that's what the etymology of the name means. Ichthyes still means fish, and osti means bone. So these are the bony fishes. Includes at least, and this is a low number, it's probably closer to 26,000 species, but it's by far the most diverse group of vertebrates. No other group of vertebrates has this many species. Birds is probably second with around 9,000 or something like that. These animals have a bony plate called an operculum that covers their gills. So when you look at the side of a fish, you only see one opening, and that's the opening from the operculum. This fish has had its operculum cut away. It's been cut right there, but there would just be this one kind of arc-shaped opening here, where sharks had multiple gill openings. These animals also have a swim bladder. The swim bladder allows them to maintain neutral buoyancy. You may have had the experience of watching fish in an aquarium just floating in the middle of the water, and without twitching any of their fins, they sink down and they go up. How do they do that? You or I, we have a great deal of trouble doing that. We can blow air out of our lungs and sink down, but we can't go back up without swimming. They can actually change the composition of the gases in their swim bladder and allow them to change their density so that they will sink further or float more. It's really an amazing adaptation. And the swim bladder actually is believed to have given rise to some air-breathing structures, some of which could be called lungs. These fishes have lateral lines like the shark did, these sensory lines on either side of their body. These fishes, too, now this is not true of all of the tens of thousands of species, but the majority of them have external fertilization. This is unlike the sharks, which primarily had internal fertilization. Of course, I can think of one group of fish right now that of bony fishes in class Osteichthyes that has internal fertilization. Think of the guppies. but the majority have external fertilization. The female will lay the eggs outside the body in a nest or something, or just broadcast them in the water, and the males will release sperm and fertilize them outside of the body, and that's external fertilization. There are 3 groups of Osteichthyes, and we're not going to give these taxonomic designations. We're just going to call them 3 groups. So 3 groups under class Osteichthyes. One is the teleos, or the regular bony fishes, and this makes up the vast majority of this 21,000. Lungfishes make up just a handful, and lobe-finned fishes make up one species whose name is the coelacanth, and you should remember this name, the coelacanth. Now, I already told you that ichthyology is the study of fishes, but here it's written down to help you to see the spelling and to remember it a little bit better. Now, fish scales have an interesting origin. They're derived from a deeper tissue layer known as mesoderm than our reptile scales and feathers and hair. All those have an ectodermal origin, but fish scales are mesodermal, and they actually are individually removable. That's why you can scale a fish. You can take a knife and rub it against the scales, and the scales will pop off. And this actually shows right here, the lower right, a picture of a salmon that's been cut open, and you can actually see that someone's using a pointer to depress the swim bladder, which is an air-filled sac which helps them to fishes to maintain neutral buoyancy. Now, this is a female fish. You can see the eggs are the roe, R-O-E, right there. This actually shows where the swim bladder is located in the body, and it shows that there's a gas gland, so it can regulate the gases there in a muscular valve. It really is a remarkable adaptation of fishes. You should be able to draw a bony fish, although you won't be asked to do so on the final, but just so you know the scales. I'm sorry, did I say scales? I meant the fins of the fishes. So you do need to know the names of the fins of the fishes. Let me just change this to a pen, and so you should definitely know that the bony covering over the gills is the operculum. This whole structure here is the operculum, and that's the opening, and we'll have multiple pairs of gills in the gill chamber underneath. Now, the pectoral fins, there are 2 of these, a right and a left. You can think of these as arm fins, which is, of course, silly. This is kind of 3rd grade stuff, but just to help you remember. Pelvic fins, there are 2 of them, a right and a left, and these are like the leg fins. The tail is the caudal fin, and then we have the dorsal fin, which is on the back, and there's a lateral line and the caudal fin, and of course the anal fin. There's typically 1 dorsal fin, although there might be 2 parts of it, here part A and part B, and it's located singly on the midline, so there's not a right and a left dorsal fin or something like that. There's usually 1 anal fin and 1 caudal fin as well. And so that's just to familiarize you with those fins of the fish, the topography, the body shape of a fish. And this is just a homage. We can't do justice to the fishes in the few minutes we have to devote to them out of the whole semester. But this just shows, here's some kind of little surf fish that lives on a reef or something. Here's an angelfish. It's a reef fish for sure. Here's a rainbow trout. Here's a largemouth bass. Here's Nemo, clown fish, and they live in sea anemones. Here's some salmon, and here's a giant king salmon. I think these are sockeye salmon. Here are the bright red ones. And then in the lower right here is a lionfish, which has venomous spines, and is a favorite of some aquarists because it's a poisonous fish that could kill you, but they like it, and it is quite beautiful. And so these are all teleos, or the typical bony fish. They all fall in that grouping. So remember, the second grouping of fishes were the lungfishes. The lungfishes have a very distinct appearance. Of course, they have, in addition to gills, some of them have functional gills and some of them do not. but all of them have a lung, which is an accessory organ which allows them to breathe air. Now, if they live in water that's depleted of oxygen, this allows them to survive. They can actually breathe oxygen from the air. And some of them, such as the African lungfish, can form a cocoon if the body of water in which they're living dries up, and they can withstand the drying of the body of water. And then when it rains and fills back up, they can come back out of the cocoon and be alive. It's really quite amazing. And so the lungfishes are an important group, and it seems like they might be the group that gave rise to vertebrates, but in fact, they're not. If you look at their fins, they have little fleshy appendages there. They have bones and muscle in there. They're not just membranous or rays in skin, but they have bone and muscle inside those fins, especially the pectoral and the pelvic fins, the arm fins and the leg fins. But it is this group of fish, the coelacanths, that we think it was an ancestor of theirs that gave rise to the four-legged vertebrates, such as amphibians and their descendants. The coelacanth was known from fossils, and it was believed to be extinct until in 1938, an ichthyologist was in a fish market in Mozambique, Africa, and they saw a body of a coelacanth. They were astounded because they knew them only from fossils up to that time. And of course, that gave rise to a search and a great governmental effort to find the coelacanth. And we know now that coelacanths, they are deep sea fishes, the surviving lineage of coelacanths, but the coelacanths that gave rise to the amphibians, they lived in shallow waters, and they gave rise to the next superclass under subphylum Vertebrata, the last superclass of the semester, and we'll study that in our next module.